It is the Tile Happy Hour, and we are live online. I am by myself right now. We are trying to find John. He is here and somewhere in the world. I'm hoping he can hear me now, but just in case he can't, I am going to call out and we're going to jump right in to something that I had not planned, and that is a little bumper about what's coming up next. And next in the next few weeks, we are having some special guests, and the special guests are exciting. And one of those guests is Mr. Ron Nash. On June 6th, Ron Nash is coming, and I even made a little bumper for him. And he is, if you don't know Ron, he's a unique guy, and he is going to talk to us about some things with Laticrete and the state of the industry. And if you know anything about Laticrete, they are innovators in the tile and stone world. I mean, I've said it before, they invented thinset. Thinset was one of the things that the Rothberg family came up with, and Mr. Ron Nash has been president for the last couple of years, and he is gracious enough. He's going to join us on the 6th of June, and that's going to be at our new time at Tuesdays at 8 o'clock. And John, if you can hear me, I sent the link to you in your email with the assets. So you should have the link to get on live. If not, I'm going to see if my lovely assistant here can help me out and get that to you. So it is happy hour. It is the live stream, and we are cheers to each other. The drink cam is on. As you see, it is once again Jameson. We'll love to see what John is going to bring in. I'm going to try to pull up something here to get him online. And today was it's going to be an interesting episode. We're talking about one of the things that I started in when I started in the industry was Terrazzo tile. And Terrazzo was a part of, hold on one second. I'm sending something to John right now. See if he can get that link there. Make sure he can read that. Sorry for the distraction, but Terrazzo is something really cool, and it is a poured in place floor tile that is almost indestructible. It's one of the best maintenance floor tiles. But that's what we're going to talk about today. And let me just welcome you to the Tile Happy Hour. This is where we talk about anything and everything tile. And today we're going to talk about Terrazzo tile. But if you're watching live, we want to know where you're watching from. We want to make sure that we add you into the program, because I can see you and I can see your comments. So comment live, and we will get to your questions. If you're watching on a playback, please leave us some feedback, leave us some comments, and we will make sure that we answer those comments. Today in the tile industry it's been pretty busy. I know that everybody is doing a bunch of different things, but as we started the summer, we decided to bump this to Tuesday nights, hoping that we could get more people to join us and talk about tile and the things that tile has done for the industry and for us as and also doesn't interrupt our Friday nights date nights, and Friday nights I'm headed to the beach nights. So Tuesday night, the drink cam is active. Let me know what you want to talk about. And as we jump into the topic, and let's talk about the history of Terrazzo. Terrazzo, if you're not familiar with the old world Terrazzo, you probably haven't been into many government buildings that were built in the 60s and 70s and on up to today. But Terrazzo was a process that was created in the first century. And in the first century, we got to the innovators came up with the idea that slurry and cement and marble chips could be put together on a floor. And the greatest thing about those things is that they're almost indestructible. They last forever. That's why they're in some of the most widely traveled commercial buildings, because of the maintenance advantages of them. And it wasn't but a few years ago that they decided to make them into tile. So they pre-made them into tile. And now we're going to bring John in to tell us what he knows about Terrazzo tile. John,
hey, what's happening? How's it going,
Good to see you.
Same here. So I was just in the back making some Terrazzo tile. And
that's what I figured. You were making Terrazzo tile. It is Eastern Daylight Standard.
Yes.
Time. I don't know what that means. And Tom got away from us this afternoon, and we didn't get to our sound check. I apologize for that, but I'm glad you made it safely. I know you were in the city today.
Yes.
And from what I hear, in the city, you can have a 2-hour car chase. Running away from photographers. I'm sure that's exactly what happened with you.
It's exactly what happened.
But now you're here, and I've introduced the show. I introduced my drink, even though I didn't have a drink. But now that you're here, cheers, John.
That is awesome.
You just drink from the bottle. It's okay.
This is what I got to go with right now. Yeah, it's been a wild day here in New York City, and I'm glad to be here. Great to see you, Craig. I love Terrazzo. What's cool about Terrazzo is that it just has such history in the world, right? And it's being used all over. It's been used for centuries, and the origin of it is so cool. I mean, even from the simplest, crudest facts of just kind of like scraps of stone and marble put together and made into flooring of some sort, and can be done in, big areas and just kind of spread out. And sometimes they put dividers of some material like a metal, but back then it was just a way of paving floors, was using stone, a lot of times left over from quarries, and it's evolved to the point where we have tiles of terrazzo, we have slabs of terrazzo, and now we have some awesome porcelain tiles that look just like terrazzo. Really nice.
What do you think the purpose of that is? I know we have actual terrazzo tiles, and then has the terrazzo design gotten so popular that the porcelain manufacturers just said, hey, let's jump on board with this?
Well, it's kind of like the marble looks, right? So back in 70s, 80s, anyone who was doing a really nice bathroom, let's say in a residential area or a commercial application, if you really wanted to do something elegant, it had to be natural marble, right? It was always natural. And then they came up with being able to make tile, be it ceramic, and then later on porcelain, to look like marble. But when it first came out, it just was hokey looking. It really wasn't authentic looking. So it really didn't take off.
Yeah.
Now with the technologies, this printing technology, so to speak, on tile, you can make it look really natural. Sometimes even different like finishes on the surface, and they can make terrazzo look in porcelain tile that looks so authentic you wouldn't really know that it wasn't a terrazzo tile. So because of that, there's been a big resurgence because sometimes terrazzo is off the table for many reasons: cost, thickness, maintenance, availability,
competence,
right? I mean, real
That's
terrazzo.
the biggest thing,
yeah, it's true. I don't know, in North Carolina, where you're at, do you have
Mhm.
you guys have many diners there, like typical diners?
No, only kitschy stuff. Nothing authentic like you guys have. And I think Terrazzo was making a comeback on some of those smaller venues. The first I heard of a grocery store doing it recently. Back in the day they used to do it all the time, but Publix, which is a Florida-based grocery store, all of the Publix are cement Terrazzo.
Really?
Yep. And
That's pretty
what's
cool.
it's crazy. Publix is a pretty big company, but and cement Terrazzo is not as easy to work with. There's a toss up between cement and epoxy, but it has some. You got to be a real craftsman to be able to use that. And the crazy thing about, and if I got these numbers wrong, I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments. But if to get a Publix contract, you had to commit to the cement Terrazzo, commit to the moisture mitigation, and commit to a 2-week time period. And those are, I think they're 20,000 square feet.
Right.
So you have 10 working days to do it. And the company I used to work for, they got a couple of those contracts, and it was day and night. And because when you're doing, and this is a disadvantage, when you're doing traditional Terrazzo, you really shut down the whole area. No other trades can work. There's nothing in that area, and until you're finished and it's covered up, and then you give it back to the general contractor.
Yeah. So the reason I mentioned diners, and it feeds into what you were saying, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, I don't know about the rest of the country, but those areas kind of like, the central area where diners were built, and traditional diners, and every diner had many things that were very, very similar to each other. Very similar, like layouts, the counter, the stools, the booths, a lot of things, the menus, the booths. How do you say booths? Booths. That's hard.
Booths?
No, plural. Come on, add an S.
Booths.
Let's see if you can. Yeah, you sound stupid too.
Boots. Those you wear on your feet.
Yeah.
Boots.
So, but the floors of diner, it's like, it was so typical. Like if you could blindfold somebody in the New York area and like bring them into a building and look down, and you see Terrazzo with every 24, 30 inches, or maybe bigger, big areas with the brass divider, you would say, I'm in a diner. Like you would know you're in a diner.
Let me guess. It's probably a white base with multicolored marble chips.
Exactly. I mean, I could picture it now. There are a lot of diners that still have that, and it's just really a staple. And you had mentioned those kind of installation parameters that kind of make you want to say, why do I want to do Terrazzo?
Right.
Because, in a commercial application, there's timelines, there's trades, a lot happening. And if you could come in and you want the Terrazzo look, instead of doing a traditional Terrazzo, meaning, actually one solid piece, maybe you can buy Terrazzo tiles that are pre-made.
Yeah, because I think originally who tried to knock this off was VCT. VCT came in with the white colored tile and the speckles, but you compare VCT's quality to Terrazzo, and there's no comparison. VCT has to be re-waxed, it has to be reinstalled. Now it is cheap, and like I think where you're headed is now you have a porcelain tile or a Terrazzo tile that mimics some of the good qualities of Terrazzo, but yet kind of saves on some of that cost. Also, some of the getting out of the way. Tile installation can be a little more forgiving. For access.
So
and I threw a couple of these in here. Does that look like your diner?
Yeah. Well, the small aggregate, typically is somewhere in the middle there, right? As far as the aggregate size. So when you say Terrazzo, just like when you say a marble look, sometimes you don't mean real marble, sometimes you don't mean real Terrazzo. So there's basically 3 types of Terrazzos, right? There's the one solid, piece of meaning on the job. What do they call that?
It's called poured in place.
Poured in place.
Yep, poured in place Terrazzo.
Now, is it concrete? Like, walk me through how do you? I've never seen that done. Do they pour the cement down and then put the stones in it, or is it mixed together and then troweled on?
It's job mixed and troweled on, and the two distinctions are there's cement terrazzo and epoxy terrazzo. Cement terrazzo is typically it was just your white and gray base. So you had a white and gray base, kind of like those pictures I just I stuck up there.
Right.
The cement would be the stuff that holds the rocks together, and then epoxy terrazzo. That's where things got really crazy, because then epoxy is just like paint. You can mix it to any color under the sun and come up with some really amazing designs, like these couple of things here. And they're job mix. So what happens in a commercial application is you have a designer that says, for instance, this is Fort Lauderdale Airport and Ronald Reagan Airport. For instance, I want the ocean blue. So you mix up the epoxy and you put the aggregate in it and you send it off and you get a recipe. So what happens is that recipe gets sent to the job site, and the guy's got, he's got his mixing barrel here, and he throws a scoop of this, a scoop of that, a scoop of this, a scoop of that, and pours it out. Now you got to think of how, I don't know how many square feet is either one of those airports, but they're tens of thousands of square feet. How to get that color that consistent over all that takes skill and a lot of work. And the basic process is, once the floor is prepped and ready, you put down your metal strips, which you talked about before, which traditionally there was just two types. It was zinc and brass. Now they use stainless steel and aluminum, but traditionally it was just zinc and brass.
But what's the purpose of those? Aesthetics, or those are like expansion joints?
They can be aesthetic, but they have to be there for movement. It is to give the system a place to move, and that way, when you put it just like a concrete joint, you want it to crack here. I've put this here. I want it to crack here rather than cracking through. And I'm pointing at my screen, but cracking through my fancy leaf over there. So,
but what you mean by crack is, obviously, if you can visualize, if there's like stress, you don't want the stress to show itself in the middle of a floor. So you're saying the stress kind of dissipates through the metal. Does it? Does anything? If there was a floor that didn't have the metal strips, and let's say right in the middle of the floor, it's going to crack because of environmental conditions, settling, whatever, hot, cold, temperature changes.
Sure.
Let's picture that same exact room, and let's picture the same exact square footage, same material, and now you have the metal, and all of a sudden there's this event that wants this stress. Does it find that joint, and then does anything happen noticeably to that joint, or it kind of just dissipates?
Yes and no. It depends on how severe the movement is. But yes, what that joint does is it creates a weak point. And the movement's going to find the weak point, and the weak point's going to crack there. That's why we have cuts in our concrete and stuff like that. Most of the time.
But what do you mean by it's going to crack there? Is it actually going to crack, or is it just
it'll separate from the metal? So if you ever go into a large area, and you see those metal strips, sometimes if it's an older building, you'll see that there's a gap on one side or the other.
And that wasn't the way it was originally.
That wasn't the way it was originally, but that is just taking the movement and it's placing it in that spot.
So the floor is not destroyed. It's like it did its job.
Correct. And that can be fixed and patched. But if you don't put it in, I think, then you're at the luck of the draw of where that crack's going to end up. And that can make it a lot more difficult to fix.
So question for you. You talked about the cement base, a cementitious base, usually a gray or a white. And then there's the aggregate. And then there's the, did you say epoxies, the base? Okay, so the epoxy base. And the reason you're bringing that in, one of the reasons you're bringing that in is to have the blue background, let's say, in that last picture.
Yeah.
Is there are there other benefits like strength and absorbency in the epoxy as opposed to the cementitious?
Yeah, epoxy is stronger. It can be poured thinner. So you can get a thinner floor, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or online. You can pour an epoxy terrazzo at 3/8 of an inch thick, and I think cement terrazzo has to be an inch or maybe an inch and a quarter.
And cement of that type is weaker when it's thinner and stronger when it's thicker.
Yeah, it's more brittle. But yeah, so you mix it up on site. You mix it up in your mixing barrel, and then you dump it on the floor and you trowel it with a trowel, kind of like you would do concrete, and you get it flat, pack it in, and then you let it dry. And what's crazy is you let it dry and it looks like oatmeal. It looks
terrible.
So then
the aggregate sticking up, is it like uneven?
Yeah, the aggregate's it's like a lumpy bowl of oatmeal. Or
wow. I'd love to see that done in person.
Yeah, it is if you've never seen it done, you should, especially if you're interested in construction and stuff like that. It's really neat. And then the next day, or whenever they finish pouring, then they will, and you have to pour different colors at different times. So for instance, you look at Reagan Airport here on the left, all those different colors have to be poured on the same day. And then you have to go back, and then, so you pour the red, and then you go back and pour the black, and then you go back and you work on the logo. And then once that is all poured and cured, then the grody stuff starts happening. You pretty much have a heavy duty grinder. You get in there and you grind the floor with a ton of water, and it creates this slurry, and it's really gross. And the floor is then flat. And then you go through stages of polishing, just like you would a marble tile. So you polish.
I mean, that's a big commitment.
Oh, it's huge. And the commitment, not only is it a time commitment, you've got a craftsman commitment, and then the equipment is not cheap. You've got these grinders that are $75,000 each, and you got a job like Reagan Airport. There's no telling how many grinders you got on one job, and then you have to have power to run them. So you have generators. It is for instance, the company I used to work for, we had 3 full-time mechanics that worked just on the grinders to keep them running and keep them up to speed.
Wow.
And so that is those difficulties, and is why I think terrazzo tile started popping up. And I think that was probably in the early 2000s is when I started seeing it.
When you say terrazzo tile, you mean the real terrazzo, but kind of preformed in pieces, right?
Yeah, preformed, precast terrazzo is what they call it. And
what about the thickness? Are they typically? They're typically like 1/2 inch thick.
1/2 inch, 5/8. Yeah, I think 5/8 is typical thickness.
Right.
Wausau, out of Wisconsin.
Wausau? Yeah.
It's out of Wisconsin. They were kind of the first ones that I remember. I'm sure there's others out there that have done it, but Wausau was the first one that I remember doing it. And early on, it was not that much cheaper. Now, it was less messy and kind of less destructive.
Right.
But the quality of the terrazzo was similar to the quality of regular terrazzo. So when you installed it, you still had to go back and grind it and polish it.
Oh.
So I think over the years, it's kind of held on to that reputation of, well, this is not that much cheaper, and it's still, we got to grind it and polish it. But now the process has gotten better. There's a lot of other companies that are making terrazzo tile, and not only in cement, but also epoxy and resin based is what you hear it called sometimes.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Tileball introduced that terrazzo with mother of pearl in it.
Yeah. Mother of pearl's, mother of pearl and glass. You can really do some really neat stuff with terrazzo poured in place. When my wife and we had a school for a while, I designed a floor and we did it in terrazzo in the gang bathrooms just because I could.
So if I'm calling on an architect designing an airport, one of the first things the owner, developer, or municipality that's developing an airport, one of the first decisions is, what's the flooring going to be, right? Because when you go to an airport, it's all it is floors, right? The walls are nothing like important, and then there's windows, right to the tarmac. So the floors are like literally, think about it, right? When you think of airports, you just think of floors, like endless floors.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniela. Thin terrazzo can go down to a quarter of an inch. I was wrong.
Oh, really?
Danielle, I appreciate that. Thanks for jumping in, correcting my memory, which is dangerous at best. But
so what's one of the first questions if I was an architect and I went to the not thinking about budget?
Yep.
And I would say to the powers that be, so what kind of experience do you want when people are traveling? And here's why that's important. Picture the luggage cart with wheels.
Yep.
Right. And we've all been to those back ass airports, right? And you drag in your luggage and you hit click over the grout joints, right?
Yep.
And
that's where people go crazy.
It seems minor, but it's not. If you have a building full of people wheeling 49.5-pound pieces of luggage, right?
Exactly.
And that's like a luxury. It's like if you're building an airport, like you probably would like to have no seams, and the only way to do that, because you can get some really really super nice porcelain, large format, very close together, rectified or whatever, and really super successful in minimizing the clanking, right? Bigger format, small grout joints. But the only way to completely eliminate that is to have a poured. Now, is it called, if you're troweling, is it still called poured?
Yeah, still called poured in place. Yeah.
Got it.
Poured in place.
So the only way, so if I was building the John Tedisco International Airport,
I
would
Where is that located?
On Long Island.
Long Island. Okay, gotcha.
And I would vote for an epoxy terrazzo, but the budget, it's got to be 5 times the cost to do a pour than tiles. Porcelain tiles maybe.
It depends on a lot of different factors. I mean, you can get it down relatively cheap when you have really large amounts of square footage.
Right.
But and I'm not going to say any pricing because I'll misspeak, and Danielle have to correct me again. But you can get pretty aggressive when you have large areas. Yes.
He thinks he knows everything.
No, but it is less expensive. But we've talked about this before. You've got to look at lifetime costs, and it has the best lifetime cost of any flooring material, because of maintenance, and it really will never wear out.
Right. Well, but I'm going to argue with you a little, and I have no stats to back it up, which is how I operate. I feel like terrazzo would have some maintenance, especially the cementitious. I don't know, the epoxy probably needs some polishing or whatever, but a good quality porcelain needs zero.
Well, and when I say maintenance, I mean, it still requires like cleaning, but as far as it's, you can't destroy it. Like, porcelain tile, if somebody with the wrong cart comes across it, you could damage it. But I would say that they're pretty close on maintenance, porcelain tile and terrazzo. But terrazzo historically has had the best cost overall. Hey, before we get into the tiles, I got a question for you. You ready?
Right. I'm ready for you.
Daniela says it wasn't a correction, just information. Hey, we appreciate.
She's so sweet. That's really nice of you.
John would say it was absolutely a correction, but I appreciate it, Danielle. All right, so we often do our. Well, first of all, you were fumbling around. I don't know what you're doing. Did you hear that Ron Nash is going to be with us with Laticrete in 2 weeks?
Yes, I was just looking for the date. So Ron Nash is the CEO. COO, Chief Operating Officer and President of Laticrete International, is it called? I don't know. But
it's called Laticrete.
Laticrete. Well, it's very hip now just to have once like share or, just one word. Laticrete. Bono, exactly. So your world evolves a lot around the setting materials, and
Yes.
I highly respect your experience and knowledge of that industry and Latacrete. I've been in the industry my entire life, and I've had that same level of reverence for a few companies in the industry, and they are definitely the one who's led the way in innovation, coming up with products. And Ron is a great guy. I'm looking forward to chatting with him. So we're going to have Ron on June 8th, maybe 6th.
June 6th. June 6th. Here, I even made a slide for you.
Thanks for the cheat sheet. I appreciate it. Ron Nash, president. I could have used that like a minute ago,
Yeah, well, I just wanted to see you fumble through it. All right, well, we'll move on because I covered that a little bit while you were getting squared away. I haven't tried this bumper yet, so we're going to try it. That was the wrong one.
Last call. Let's do it.
That's the wrong bumper. I guess that's the reason I haven't tried it yet. But I've got right here a question for you.
All right. Just one?
Hot off the press. Well, it's actually a two-part question.
All right.
But it's hot off the press. So, and I'm going to read it. I just got a call from an installer, one of my customers' jobs. He called and asked, should I soak the wabi-sabi tile in water before installing?
Okay, so for those non-tile bar people out there, wabi-sabi. Now the word wabi-sabi is like irregular, is it? Or like I'm losing this
Anonym? I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to say. Anonym?
Anyway, so wabi-sabi is just the name of a ceramic tile. It's pretty much almost a red body, maybe a white medium body ceramic tile that's very porous in the back, not porous in the front, because wabi-sabi is glaze on the front.
Correct.
But if this was 1975, yes, we would soak it, because you'd probably be putting it in with like on cement, right? Just and it would the porosity of the ceramic tile would draw the moisture out of the concrete before it was able to bond, and it wouldn't stick. Nowadays, with the new technology in setting materials, you don't need to set. No, you don't need to set. You don't soak it in water.
Right. You don't have to. It doesn't hurt anything, but you don't have to.
Oh, I never knew that. But if you use an organic adhesive, you don't wet it, right?
Oh,
yeah. That would be bad.
That would be bad.
That would be bad. So, so wabi-sabi is a ceramic tile. You don't soak it. Nobody soaks it. But I remember when I was a lot younger, working for a tile mechanic in my teens. That was my job, because that's all I was qualified for. Was he had a big
soaking the tile,
5-gallon drum, empty big plastic drum filled with water, and you literally took, at that time, the large format tiles, 8 inches by 8 inches,
8 inch by 8 inch, yeah,
and you would stack them just picture a big vat of water, and you take tiles, you open up the boxes, and you put them in, and what do you see after you put it in?
Probably bubbles.
Yes, all of a sudden it's like fizzing. It's like you see all the moisture escaping from the tile, and then after, and I don't remember if it was overnight or it was a few hours. I don't remember the timeline. Do you know what the time would be?
No.
But it would, and then the tile guy would, then you'd have to take him out, and they're much heavier, and bring him to the installer, the professional installer. He's on his knees, his knee pads, and leveling the floor, ready to go. And my job was to literally just stack the tiles next to him, so he can just reach over
and grab them
and stick it in there. There
is a couple of opportunities to still do that. If you're setting tile outside and it's extremely hot, it's we call it giving the substrate a drink. You wipe off your substrate with a damp sponge. That kind of, if the heat is there, it can flash off some of the thin set, and so doing that in a tile, it doesn't hurt anything. And also, if you've got a situation like that where it's very porous and it's very hot, and you just maybe want a little bit more water in there. But
what if it's not porous? It's a porcelain, but you want to bring the temperature down. Would that work too?
It could, yeah. I mean, it
Yeah.
could bring the temperature down. It's not going to absorb in, or not much of it anyway.
Right.
Well, but there's a part two that and John, man, I need a
Yes.
little sound effect button. Ding, ding, ding. You got that part of the Rex correct. But the second part of his question was, can you give me some advice on a grout joint size? Listen to the whole question before you answer. He would like to utilize a 1/16 of an inch grout joint, but some of his crew is new and weary that spacers will not work in this tile because it's not rectified or micro beveled. What would your response be to that?
Well, first get somebody experienced, but let's go to the other part of the question. So first place, wabi sabi is a wall tile. It's a ceramic wall
Correct.
tile. So you typically, it's sometimes a little more forgiving to put a smaller space on the wall, because if you have a little bit of lippage slightly, when you put a tile really close together, right? If there's a little lippage, it's not desirable, but if it's on the floor, you feel it, right? And I'm not even saying necessarily you would trip over it unless it's super bad. But so on the wall, I think a standard on a wall is, I mean, the smallest you can go, I would say, is like 16 to 3/32 of an inch, but it depends on the tile. It's not rectified because ceramic tiles are not rectified. Sometimes there's like a built-in like little spacer. There you go.
Yeah.
And I would say my final answer is 3/32 of an inch on the wall.
They don't make spacers 3/32 of an inch. I don't. Why is there an echo now? I don't disagree with that statement. My typical answer is 1/8 of an inch. I like 1/8 of an inch for a wall tile. I think it gives a novice a fighting chance, even if they've got a little bit of trouble with their substrate, and they possibly got a little bit of trouble with some with the tile not being straight. This kind of reminds me of a little bit of a handmade look, which normally means the edges aren't straight, they're not square. And if you try to set that with a 1/16 of an inch grout joint, it may be pretty frustrating and may not get there unless you've got some serious skill and you've got an extremely flat wall.
Right. Well, that particular tile, you're right about all of that. So the wabi sabi tile looks handmade, but it is machine made. So
right.
So it is very regular, the edge on the tile, like, you know, but
it's not undulated.
The surface is undulated, but the edges aren't wavy.
Well, that's good.
Well, maybe it's a little wavy, but where you would potentially, like, if you put the two tiles together, I think they would meet, but you can absolutely handle 1/8 of an inch aesthetically in that tile. If it was a shiny white, like nano glass tile, you know, 1/8 of an inch joint sometimes looks too big for that type of tile. You know, if you could accomplish that or not is another question. But
correct.
On a wabi sabi type of tile that's undulated on the surface, kind of looks slightly handmade and irregular. 1/8, I would absolutely go with an 1/8, especially if you're not a. You know, I have people ask me all the time, Craig, oh, what's the smallest? I said, what should I tell my contractor? I say, well, first place, be careful, because whatever you tell him, he's going to bump it up 1/8 or a quarter. So you want to tell him no space, and he'll tell you no, bigger, or 1/8, and he'll say a quarter. But you really need to speak to the contractor and specifically say, and he has to maybe do a test, like, what is the closest grout joint you could accomplish on this job with this tile? Let me see it. And maybe even grout a little section or a test board, because it really is important. So yeah, 1/8 of an inch is safe all around, walls and floors, right?
I like 3/16 for floors, but once again, I'm conservative and I want to give the person that's never done it a fighting chance. And the reason I say that is because if I tell a client that knows nothing about it 3/16 and their contractor says, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about, I can do this at 1/8. And if they can sell it at 1/8, good on them. They've given them a better installation than I gave them expectations of. But on the opposite side, if I tell them a 1/16 and their contractor is not good with that and it looks terrible, then it's my fault. So
Right.
that's where I'm coming from, and you're absolutely 100% correct. A dry lay with the actual grout joint, and everybody putting their heads together and looking at it before a bucket of thin set is mixed up is the best way to stay out of an argument and sometimes out of court.
Well, you know what the beauty of this is, when you're using the old-fashioned grout, let's call it, you needed to know that answer when you're placing your tile order.
Right.
Because the difference of 1/8 of an inch, smaller than 1/8 of an inch or bigger than 1/8 of an inch, changes the product you're buying for the grout.
Correct. Yep.
And we've all come across that on the job where somebody was anticipating it to be 1/8 or 1/4, and then they talk the contractor into smaller, and everyone's happy. But then they start grouting it with sanded grout, and now you have a fail because it's the wrong grout. And then the reverse is true.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and then the reverse is true. The homeowner or the building owner wants a really narrow joint. They buy grout, and they feel if I buy the unsanded grout, it will force my contractor to make a small joint.
And then they've got a fat grout joint with no aggregate in it, which also looks terrible.
Yeah, and fails, right? Cracks and crumbles.
Yes, absolutely.
So now, and we could talk to Ron about this, how he came up, but what's that super product they have?
Well, their newer grout, couple of them, but their high performance grout is Permacolor, and Permacolor is rated for a 1/16 all the way up to a 1/2 inch.
That's amazing.
And that's just because of the aggregate size. They made the aggregate, they made it round. It's not like a rock anymore. And so that does, you're right, that gives the installer and the homeowner some flexibility to maybe make a change in the field for better, or for smaller or larger.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's the main reason I love the Permacolor, is because you really don't have to have that conversation at the tile store, because sometimes they don't even know who the contractor is, or they may know who the general contractor is. They don't know the tile guy, and they don't know necessarily the tolerances of that particular tile. I mean, I may know, but each tile has its own little nuance, and each installer has his own little skill and capabilities and limitations, right?
And substrate means something too.
That's true.
If the substrate's all crapped up, you may need some extra room.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to Terrazzo tiles, John.
What's Terrazzo tile?
Terrazzo tile. We talked a lot about poured-in-place Terrazzo, and Terrazzo tile is, and I've seen more of it nowadays than I've seen in the last probably 5 or 6 years. Seems like everybody has one. I did some research, so I'm gonna let you guess again. It's a guessing game. What do you think the Terrazzo tile sales are in the United States for 2022? Just Terrazzo tile sales.
And do you mean real Terrazzo or
no?
Not
Terrazzo tile.
Tile meaning porcelain tile.
I don't know. They don't really designate if it's porcelain tile or actual Terrazzo tile, kind of like our Terrazzo of Italy collection.
So I'm asking you these questions, and it sounds like I have an idea, but I have no idea. So, so I want to fine tune my answer based on your response. It wouldn't make a difference in my reply. I was just curious. I have no clue. I would say
I didn't either, but
$200 million. No,
that's not bad. That's not a bad guess, John.
Yeah. 160 million. Let's go.
Last year, it looks like they clocked in at 150 million, which, that's, I don't know what that is for the percentage in the floor. But what I thought was interesting is that in 2018 it was only 100 million. So in just 4 years, it's increased by what's that? I can't do that math in my head, but it's not doubled.
50% more.
It's 50% more,
right,
in 2 years. So that part of our industry has increased pretty steadily and pretty exponentially over the last 4 years.
You know what? When Tile Bar started bringing in porcelains that look like Terrazzo, I think our first success with the Terrazzo was, the real Terrazzo, and still is real Terrazzo tiles. Not we don't do poured
Sure.
jobs. We have slabs available, not stock, but we order them for projects in Terrazzo, primarily from Italy. But I was really surprised when we had a Terrazzo look at tile bar come out, and then like another one introduced, and then a hexagon in Terrazzo, and I was like, this is way too much Terrazzo.
Are we gonna sell this stuff? Yeah.
But we are, and like we're selling out of the stuff every day. It's amazing. It really is taking off, and I think it's well, I know it's timeless, right? Because we know the origins of it, right?
That's right. 1 AD was the first documented.
Oh, I must have missed that part of the show.
You missed that part of the show. Yeah, it went back to 1 AD. It was,
wow, that sounds like pretty close to the beginning.
Yeah, I think that was pretty close to the beginning. Before then, it was dirt.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. First, it was like dirt here, and then rock there. It was like before Reese's peanut butter was made. Like peanut butter here, chocolate there, and it didn't. They had no relationship. Now they do. So now we talked about poured terrazzo. We talked about tiles, and in the poured form, the same way you could. Well, in the tile form, same way you can make tiles, you can make slabs. But that's really interesting because when they're making terrazzo tiles, are they making slabs and cutting them to 24 by 24, or are they, well, whatever's 18 by 18, or are they the molds that size?
It depends. I think the way they used to do it, the way Wausau used to do it, is it was all molded. So it was poured in a mold, and it was made that way. Now I know that's how cement terrazzo was made. I know that different companies do it different ways.
Right.
And it just depends. And that was, I think, the reason why, when you have different molds, you've got all the edges are a little bit different, and every tile is a little bit different. I think if you pour it in a sheet and then cut it to size, I think that's where we are today, and the tolerances are a little better.
Got it. All right. So now we're talking porcelain tiles that look like terrazzo. I've seen like 24 by 24 is like a real popular stock size for many tile companies. But of course, tile has gone like wild through the roof. They can make tile or porcelain in 5 foot by 10 foot slabs that look like anything, right? They look like, most of the times a big 5 foot by 10 foot porcelain thin slab is styled as marble like 9 out of 10 times, well, maybe not 9 out of 10 times anymore. But now they're making it look like concrete, making it look like terrazzo, making it look like leather, anything. So it's pretty amazing.
Thanks for the math help, Rick. I appreciate that. As John said, where were you 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Still a little flubbered from our opening today, but I mean, as everybody says, everything old is new again, and everything comes back. I think those old looking floors with new technology, that's what you've got. And who would have thought you'd have a terrazzo looking floor in an 8-inch hexagon or a 24 by 24 tile.
I haven't seen a terrazzo like 2 by 2 mosaic. That would be like weird, right?
I haven't seen that either. I mean, they used to have one called granite, but it was just speckled.
Well, now you're dating yourself like a Dow, unglazed or
D137. I can't remember all the stupid numbers, but
was that like the off-white with the black specks?
Yep. D137. No, D137 was the I think it was the white with the gold.
Gold flecking. Yeah. But that was never considered. Was that no? Was that considered terrazzo look? Did they ever call like a granite?
I don't think so. Yeah. But kind of. I mean, you look at the evolution of those things back in the 70s and 80s. We'll go back to what I said earlier. VCT, when they came out with VCT, it always had that little fleck in it, which in my mind, they may not have thought that it was a terrazzo look, but yet that's what I relate it to. And you look at the early porcelains, the first generation porcelains, the Crossfield, where they're through body, and they all had a speck or something in them
Right.
And I don't know. Once again, I don't know if that was meant to look like Terrazzo, but
Yeah, those
it
were kind
definitely
of like
has that feel.
Yeah, it does have that feeling. I think they were kind of more like a granite look, even though granite, but it's when it's super fine grain, it's not Terrazzo look, right? Because Terrazzo is like has something a distinguishable, irregular
aggregate
look, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't think like the original like Fiandre type of, you know, unglazed porcelains with speckles that are uniform. But once you get the aggregate a little bigger than normal, and once you get the aggregate a little, and I mean aggregate look, a little irregular, then you could definitely call it Terrazzo for sure.
Yeah.
I wonder where Terrazzo's going. I mean, people are putting Terrazzo floors. I haven't seen any applications I don't think I've seen applications with Terrazzo tile or looking tile on the walls much, but I'm sure there are. The same way the wood, right? The wood porcelain planks.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, in a million years, you wouldn't think someone's going to put this on a wall, right? Now you see bathrooms like
all the time.
All the time where the wood grain to the point where that's peaked and not many people are doing it as much.
I've seen some Terrazzo countertops, especially down in Florida. You know, a lot of residential. You don't see it residentially much where I'm from. I don't know about where you're from.
You have countertops in where you are?
No, I mean, not here. I don't have them at home. We eat on the floor.
Okay, that's what I was visualizing down in hillbilly land in North Carolina.
In the flatlands. But down in Florida, they have a lot of homes that have Terrazzo floors and, you know, Terrazzo countertops. And Wausau has a whole different type of their business that has Terrazzo outdoor furniture. Those, you know, you see them a lot at government buildings.
Yeah, municipal buildings, right? They have like the planters and
Yep. So I mean, they've been using it for stuff like that forever. I mean, it's kind of dated. I don't know that that's coming back. But
so here's a trivia question for you: how do you spell Wausau?
Wausau. All
right, good.
I've written several POs to them.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Never got to a Green Bay Packers game with them though. I hear they take customers there. They're Packer people, but you know that's okay.
People. So what's since I'm asking you questions,
sure.
Okay, what's today's national day of?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. I bought this new thing on my wall over there. Can you see it? Right now it's showing the Dow Jones.
Oh, cool.
It actually scrolls the national day, but it's not going to now that I'm pointing at it. So I don't know what today is national day.
National Taffy Day. And also National Lucky Penny Day.
I'm not a taffy fan.
Yeah, well, the dentists love it because it pulls your
teeth out, your
fillings out, right? Exactly.
But taffy's big down at the coast. You know, saltwater taffy. I don't know what you make. I guess you make regular water taffy. I've never seen that advertised. I only ever.
Well, where was taffy invented?
Tapioca?
I think there's somebody watching this show who knows that answer. We're gonna. I know for a fact somebody
watching knows the answer. So if you know where taffy was invented, put it in the chat.
Yeah, I think
put it in the
comments. Chat. Yeah, taffy. Yeah, it's an acquired thing. It's fun, but it's.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. And wherever you're watching, Daniela, where are you watching from? Rick, you're probably driving, but if you want to tell us where you're watching from, thanks for being on Tuesday night with the Tile Happy Hour. It was almost a solo show since John got in his paparazzi car chase in New York City.
Well, speaking of New York City, there's a really big event tomorrow in the city.
Tell me about this event.
Yeah, so Stacy Garcia, New York, in conjunction with Interior Design Society of New York City, is putting on an event called Design Drop 2024. It's sold out, and there are 3 sponsors: Chorus Seal, who makes commercial wallpaper that Stacy Garcia designs lines for.
Right.
And then Libatex is a fabric company that Stacy Garcia designs for. It's actually a Stacy Garcia company. And Tile Bar, who Stacy Garcia also designs for. So if you see the theme, it's 3 companies that have different products
Okay.
that have products designed by a designer, Stacy. And this event is kind of called Design Drop 2024. Of course, we're going to be launching it. Oh, you have the graphic. I'm impressed. So, but it's also part of, this is Design Week in New York City. Hundreds of thousands. One of the anchors of Design Week is the ICFF. Do you remember what the name of it? What ICFF stands for? We talked about it last show. You're not going to remember. I think I lost Craig. So International. Oh my God, I forgot. Contemporary Furniture Fair. So, hey, I think Craig's getting back at me now. So we lost Craig. There we go. Thank you.
No, I'm here. I was trying to find the live stream picture, but I only found the other one. So.
Oh, of what? Live stream of what?
Yeah, where I made the one.
Okay.
Because did you mention that the happy hour will be live streaming part of the Design Drop tomorrow? I'm going to MC it for the audience out there in internet land. Because I'm gonna try to get in the show, but I don't know if it's gonna happen. Because
you need press credentials.
I need press credentials. I'm working on all that, but I'm gonna MC the show here, so you're gonna see part of it live. I don't know how much we're gonna be able to get.
This is the first for the happy hour, right? We're doing a live. What is it called? Live event, right?
A live event.
This is.
We're live. We're live now, but this event's going to be live, and I think there may be multiple cameras, people that may have cameras that we don't even know about. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but regardless, we're going to have fun and try to promote the Design Drop.
Yeah, it's going to be really great. So there's going to be a little more people involved because this show right now has 2 people. And I could tell you, based on how many people registered for the event, there's going to be an additional 175 people because we have 177 registered for this event. It's going to be a phenomenal event. It's at the Tile Bar Showroom, food, drink, signature cocktails, all that stuff. But the Design Drop is going to be presenting tile and wall coverings and fabric in kind of a fashion runway show. I'll be moderating the panel with Tracy Cluse from Corasil and Keith Baltimore from Baltimore Design Group, also on the board of IDS New York City, and of course Stacy herself. So this is a first. We're putting all the technology together. We'll see how it goes off. We're relying on a lot of things.
No matter what, we're gonna have fun. That's number one. And if you can't make it to Manhattan tomorrow, to the Flatiron District, tune in here. It will. And if you're watching this on a playback and it's not tomorrow morning,
you missed it. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm really excited about this event. It just for so many reasons. It's really exciting to get that many. I looked at the registration list. I mean, some really high profile architects and designers coming in.
Awesome.
Industry leaders, vendors of products in the industry, including Corasil, Tile Bar, and Libatech. So it's going to be a really great event. Glad that you're emceeing. It's going to be fun. And hopefully we'll see all you out there. Really looking forward to it. So tomorrow, when we say tomorrow, we mean Wednesday, May 24th, if you're watching this on a playback, 2023. And hopefully if you have a ticket, you have the hottest ticket in town. There is a wait list now. So if you are in New York City, the registration link is idsmay24.eventbrite.com. So you can still get on the wait list because there are people, like I had somebody today, they said they registered twice and I had a ticket freed up, and we realized that. So it's idsmay24.eventbrite.com, and you can get on the wait list and maybe we can get you in. Awesome. So this has been really interesting. Terrazzo is cool. I'd love to see where Terrazzo, I don't know where else Terrazzo can go except the moon or Mars. Maybe Terrazzo with moon rocks.
I would say that's probably a good idea.
Maybe we got to talk to Elon Musk. Maybe he can bring us back some aggregate.
Maybe Elon can join the Tile Happy Hour and let us know if we can get some moon rock terrazzo tile.
Let's do it. Let's get on it. Well, this has been a really good discussion. Glad that we worked out the little technical glitch in the beginning. I got here live. Craig, thanks for getting things off the ground, and happy that tomorrow the happy hour, the tile happy hour, will continue. As everyone, I guess, knows by now, the happy hour is new time is Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Summer hours, and we hope that you join us live or you join us on a replay. So this is John Tedisco. I'd like to wish you a happy hour.
And I just want to close it out. Sorry for the rough beginning, but we got going. Just enjoy, as always, talking about tile with my tile friends. And I hope that we all just continue to keep learning together. We'll see each other soon. Tune in tomorrow night for a live event here, and let's tile the world.